of Global Communication Education Conclave. This conclave has been initiated by Global Media Education Council, GMEC, the first homegrown global council of media educators, researchers, professionals, and policymakers. The idea of setting up GMEC was mooted by Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary last year. Then like-minded people joined hands with Professor K.G. Suresh as president and Dr. U.S. Pandey as vice president. Today, GMEC family has grown to more than 60 members. As vice president of GMEC, I have been part of this academic endeavor since the time this idea was mooted. I find myself fortunate to be part of the galaxy of media educators in this forum. Global Communication Education Conclave, GCEC, is the first step of GMEC. Many more academic and professional endeavors will follow. In GCEC, we have reserved evenings for academic deliberations and enriching discourse with a global perspective. And all our sessions till date have been trendsetters. We have planned 75 sessions of GCEC, and we have already achieved almost 80% of our target. In today's session, there are many distinguished scholars and professionals with us. I welcome them all in this session of GCEC. I will feel happy to share the company of Dr. Sanjay Pandey, media professional and academic and the chair of this session. Professor Dhruv Jyotipati, Dean and Director, India Today Media Institute, is also with us today as we feel proud to acknowledge his contribution and confer on him the Stellar Media Education Award. The keynote address will be delivered by Mrs. Hasina Khan, who has been lecturer at the Department of Mass Communication, SUR College of Applied Sciences, Ministry of Higher Education, Sultanate of Oman. In today's session, Mr. Sagar Vishnoi, co-founder of Govt and a political communicator and strategist, has joined as a corporate speaker. I welcome everybody in this session, and my special assignment in this session is to introduce the moderator of the day, Dr. Ahana B. Chopla. Dr. Ahana is assistant professor in the Department of Multimedia and Mass Communication at Indraprastha College for Women, University of Delhi. She is PhD in Media Literacy for Children from University School of Mass Communication, Guru Gobind Singh, Indraprastha University, Delhi. She is a graduate in English Literature and postgraduate in Development Communication from AJK MCRC Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. She is a gold medalist in Development Communication Studies. Dr. Chopla has published and presented many research papers on children, media literacy, social media, documentary films, and new media at national and international forums. She is also a member of various course committees of prestigious universities. Having more than 11 years of teaching experience, she specializes in teaching media research, social media practices, theories and models, and development communication. So now I hand over the rein to Dr. Ahana Chopla and request her to take the session forward.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a warm welcome. And now, without wasting any time, the eminent media educators, media personalities, my seniors, colleagues, and the students who are watching this program, a very good evening to everyone present here. I heartily welcome you all to the 58th webinar of the Global Communication Education Conclave, organized by GMEC, Global Media Education Council. It is my honor and privilege to moderate today's session on violation of ethics in electronic media. In 1948, the United Nations made the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, laying down certain freedoms for the mankind. Article 19 of the Declaration enunciates the most basic of these freedoms, that is, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. The right includes the freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek and receive and impart information and ideas through any media, regardless of frontiers. But the media today does not remain satisfied as the fourth estate. It has assumed the foremost importance in society and governance. While playing the role of informer, the media also takes the shape of a motivator and a leader. So today we all are here to examine how the rising popularity of electronic media and their giving utmost importance to entertainment aspect has paved the way for this sort of unhealthy competition. Even in such a scenario, some basic ethical considerations need to be kept in mind by the journalists. On that note, without wasting any time, I invite our session chair, Sir Dr. Sanjay Pandey, an acclaimed media professional and academician. Dr. Sanjay Pandey is a media professional having an experience of over 30 years as active journalist. He has worked with the Pioneer, Press Trust of India, Deccan Herald, and has covered elections, courts, assembly proceedings, social and health issues as a reporter. His reports and commentaries have been published in several leading English dailies. He has also been a media analyst. He currently heads the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at Vivekananda Global University, Jaipur. Sir, over to you.
A very good evening to all the distinguished personality, and thank you for the warming, introduction, Dr. Rahana. And as we all know, today's topic is violation of ethics in the electronic media. I'll begin with, what we have seen in the last 2 or 3 decades is a gradual, decline in the standards of presentation of news in the. Am I audible? Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir. I request other speakers, other panelists to just switch off their mic while the other person is speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I was saying, what we have been witnessing for the past about 2.5 decades, more than 2 decades, is a gradual decline in the standard of news presentation on the electronic media. And since this is a visual medium and it has a very effective medium, it affects and impacts the viewers to a great extent. So any violation, any deviation from the protocols, established protocols and ethics, it becomes a serious issue. We have witnessed these things, a violation of ethics during the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, when media, television channels, they showed the attacks live on television. And, this might have helped the enemies also. And if we know that the Article 19(2) of the Constitution of India, it imposes certain restrictions on the freedom of speech and expression, and one of them being the security of the state. So that was a violation of perhaps that restriction which was imposed on us by the Constitution. Now, moving ahead, recently, we again saw the flagrant violation of ethics during the coverage of a Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput's suicide case. So, media trial, has become the order of the day, and whenever something happens, any celebrity or something, anything of the sort, even the Aryan Khan case we recently witnessed, we see the electronic media, particularly, they start jumping the guns and start arriving at the conclusions, and the TV studios become, the field of just it resembles a kind of a trial court, and we see all those kinds of violations. Also, with several fake news allegations have also come up against the electronic media, and very recently we are seeing that the same thing in the Russian and Ukrainian war also. Without verifying the facts, we know that truth is the first casualty of war. It is all very known, but still the channels should be careful when they air the news, and they must follow the established norms, and they verify the news. They check the news before they air it, because it has a vast impact on the people. So all these things go to, and also we should not forget during the coronavirus pandemic, the coverage of the Tablighi Jamaat, Many of the media channels, they simply came out with new terms like, Tablighi virus or the Corona Jihad. These kinds of terms were coined by the electronic media at that time. So we can very well see that the violations are very blatant, and that's why there have been voices have been growing, demanding a regulator for electronic media. Unlike the print media, we don't have a regulator for the electronic media. The Press Council of India's jurisdiction doesn't apply to the electronic media. So there has been demand that we now time has come for us to have a regulator for the electronic media. That is why this issue becomes very important today, because one thing is also that I would like to mention here, that we often see audio and video clips being aired on TV channels, with a disclaimer. That's a very interesting and surprising thing, that they come out with a disclaimer that the channel does not vouch for the authenticity of the clip or the video. Now, all we have been a student of journalism, and we all know that the first principle of journalism is that you should show or write anything only when it is true. So who is going to verify that something that we are writing on or we are showing is truth and nothing but the truth? Simply by saying that I'm showing you the audio clip or the video clip, and I'm saying to you that I don't vouch for its authenticity. Then why are you showing it at all if you can't vouch for its authenticity? So these are the things that have assumed alarming proportions, and they are going to hurt the credibility of the media. And now that the viewership of the electronic media has been increasing by leaps and bounds, and if these violations continue unchecked and unabated, then I'm afraid the time is not very far when this electronic media will lose its viewership, its credibility also. I was recently reading an article by a media analyst who said that he has stopped watching television simply because he doesn't know whether to believe something which is being shown on the television or not. So these are the things that as a media professional, we must realize and understand, and we need to find a way out also. So that is why this particular topic, violation of ethics in the electronic media, has become very, very important. And it is essential that the media personnel, they discuss the issue, they deliberate on this, and they must find a way out. First of all, they should throw light on its extent and its magnitude, and how it is going to hurt the media as a profession. And also we need to do something in this regard, whether with the help of the government or self-regulation or in whatever means. We must mount pressure on the authorities to come out with some kind of regulation, an independent body on the lines of Press Council of India, to monitor the content of the electronic media. So these are the different aspects of this particular topic that we are going to discuss with eminent media personalities like Professor Dhruva Jyoti Pati, and also Mrs. Naseema Khan. And we have also a corporate guest who will also throw light on this, perhaps. And with this, I hand over the stage to Dr. Ahana again to formally start the proceedings of this deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for taking us to various events to throw light on the topic and reminding us about the truth, ethics, and credibility that our media should hold. I now request Dr. Ambrish Saxena, sir, for felicitation ceremony of Sterling Contribution Award to Eminent Media Educator. I introduce you to all Professor Dhruva Jyoti Pati. Dr. Pati is having 27 years of experience in the field of communication, brand management, and corporate communication, consumer insight, and media planning. Besides having experience in various verticals from corporate to academics in many reputed establishments and institutions in India, he is currently serving as the Dean and Director of India Today Media Institute, India Today Group. He started his career with UNICEF-funded project for CDD Watson program on public health and sanitation. Subsequently, he moved to DDB Mudra advertising and developed many strategies in brand. I request Dr. Pati to throw some light on today's discussion. But before that, I request Dr. Ambrish Saxena, sir, to kindly felicitate, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Hana. So I hereby declare the conferment of this Stellar Media Education Award to Dr. Dhruv Jyotipati. He has been a dear friend for so long, and professionally also, I know that he has contributed so significantly to media education in different capacities at different platforms. So I'm happy that he is getting this award today. So congratulations, Professor Pati, on this award. And I will request the GSEC team to play the video to depict his contribution. I think there was some technical glitch, Anna.
The team, I request you to play the video again.
Yeah, because the visuals were not seen. Technical team, please, please play it again.
The video was not visible. Kindly pin it to the screen and play it again. Thank you.
Technical team.
Visible now, you can start. Thank you. I think we have to bear with this today. So, Anna, you can go ahead. I now invite Pati sir to please say some words on the subject and also to enlighten us on the ethics that are being violated by electronic media these days.
Good evening, Dr. Ahana, Professor Amri Saxena, a dear friend, a media stalwart, Dr. Sanjay Pandey, the chair of today's special webinar, Madam Nasima from Sultanate of Oman, Professor in Communication, Mr. Sagar Bishnoi, the distinguished panelist, and my dear students, faculty member, and the team, or the organizing team. I'm quite delighted and very privileged with my sincere gratitude to the organizing team in conferring the prestigious award. I'm quite overwhelmed. Global Media Communication Conclave, as well as Global Media Entertainment Council, have taken a very great step in terms of not only conducting the series of webinars on many pertinent areas or the issues concerning to media and entertainment scenario, and also promoting the culture of good journalistic and media professional related attributed factors. I'm also quite delighted that the organizing team have so far conducted more than 57 such webinars. I'm quite glad and very happy to see that galaxy of media people like Professor Saxena is with us, who is one of the prime movers, along with Professor Ujjal Chaudhary, another good friend of mine, and I mean the other stalwarts and Professor KG Suresh as the head of this association have done a great job. At least try to honor the Indian thought leader and silent performers, I could say, because professors are not very much publicity oriented much. They silently do their work. But first time in an organized manner, an association is striving to not only recognize but also make the profession more popular among the fraternity in a way, not just in number, but also creating more synergy in terms of establishing the quality. That is the key pointer, whatever I could see and understand, and I'm quite privileged and glad to be associated with this organization. And I was quite delighted when I was connected through Dr. Ahana, a very noted scholar and a very popular teacher. So it was in totality feeling very good in a way that so our own fraternity, we need to also look at every area or aspect and then try to create a more synergy in establishing the connection between the academia and industry. That is the first. Second, creating more conducive atmosphere for teaching learning process. And third, skill development and skill enhancement part. Today's context, we as a member of the teaching fraternity or the professional in the media domain have a larger role to play in terms of educating the young minds. India is going to be one of the youngest country in the world. So our young minds, or what we call them, the millennials, must be educated with a perspective and making them globally competitive. So it is a great duty. So that's how I could see that part. Now coming back, as I have been assigned to talk on the today's part, violations of ethics in uh, broadcast media or the electronic media um, sector. I would say one first thing to start with, that I still believe that the Gandhian principle, which talk about the sarvodaya, that means whatever that we are doing for the good of others, try to ensure the welfare. Any kind of news item or any kind of content that we are putting before the audience, because while putting the content, we should ensure that our efforts are going to bring a smile or create a more conducive atmosphere in terms of making necessary steps towards the course correction. So news is not just the views alone, but also vis-a-vis the positive sides could be visualized in a manner so that the viewer could get a holistic perspective. And all of us as a student of media already known that the truth, accuracy, sensitivity, and ensuring the human angle to it, and looking at what could be the kind of repercussions after we put it across, So it is not just informing. Media's core objective that to educate, to inform, to educate, and entertain. Three things are very crucial. But there should be a kind of symbiotic understanding between these three. Information should be based on factual analysis of that part, no matter the kind of analysis that could comes out that way. Put it in a prospective manner. I could say in a way, because we are living in a era of digital world, and as far as the broadcast media or electronic media also is one of the most popular medium, stimulating the millions of mind, educating them, informing them, entertaining them, that's fine. But we should also use the kind of words that could should not hurt directly, but then educate them or making them feel what has gone wrong and what should be the process to overcome this kind of situations and all that. So pertinently, it is a prima facie duty of a journalist, or for that matter, a communicator or an entertainment specialist, or maybe a kind of the person. Let's look at the I mean the general entertainment channel per se. So in totality, objective is to bring the core conceptual part, and highlighting those points need to be understood by the people, and then ensure that the public good also prevail. That is, to my opinion, I believe that's a most sensible duty, because media not only just playing a bigger role in bringing the development in the country, but also has going to play a major role creating the unity among the diversity. So the diversity of, take an example of India, we are a multicultural and a country of full of diversities. But then the core conceptual part, not to undermining something other, or let's say overpraising something. So we have to make a very fine balancing role in terms of ensuring that the content must be communicated in a manner and it is desired with a high professional standard. So the professionalism, I was listening to Dr. Pandey, the chair of the today's session, he's rightfully highlighted a couple of points, but then it always reminds that all of us enter this profession with a pledge. At least I can tell you, all of us know that part. Any profession that you go, whether you are a doctor or a lawyer or a journalist or engineer, any profession, we take a oath to protect our profession and promote our profession also. It's not just protect, not a kind of offensive or defensive method, but a proactive, and then ensure that we are proceeding towards a larger goal. Today's context, electronic media ethical standards are quite pertinent issues coming before us in terms of ensuring in our day-to-day deliberation of the news with the factual correctness, what we call fact checking, and then well research required. So you should be 100% assured or ensured, and then coming up with more alternate things. So just not putting the problem alone, what could be the kind of the preparedness to be required. So probably that could not only alert the people, side by side also giving them a kind of neutrality in a way. So that is very much required. That's the first point. Second part, while we do our work, there may be many challenges. There are many issues before us, but at least we should look at it in a way, the kind of treatment, what you call in our language, the treatment of the news, that is must. So you must ensure with a fair amount of unbiased approach into it, ensuring we are not just communicating something, we are also promoting that our profession as well. People should have a faith, trust. When person lost it, all hopes, look at, no, media should talk about it. So there should be a kind of massive, I mean, opinion could be generated towards correcting. Objective is to correct the path, but not just victimizing, or let's say, I should say, glorifying or something, that kind of thing. So at least course corrections path must be done. And there are subtle way. I mean, I could say in a way, let's say I'm annoyed with somebody, I should not be abused in my behavior. Rather than, I should also talk about more sensibly, allowing the person to realize it. Probably that should be a best gift to the society when media do its role more responsibly, giving the kind of perspective and allow the person to understand and realize, and then talking about it. So the third part, in a digital era, what has been noticing now these days, so we are very reactive in terms of look at any kind of situation or a perspective. Rather than we should analyze it, look at the details part, and then probably started talking about it in a manner that is required with a very diligent, appropriate behavioral part. It's very, very essential. Then the fourth says that appropriate training also need to be done in terms of how to manage and handle it, from newsroom to the deliberations part, or let's say the talk shows and all that. So we must prospectively aligning it without any kind of having the kind of intentional or the human biases. We are all human beings. So there may be some kind of shortcomings or whatever that come in our way, but then we should ensure it should not ultimately go and hurt something, or it should not be one-sided part. So probably a kind of fair and accuracy, that is the point I'm trying to make that way. And then the third part, when you started talking about or deliberating on it, you must ensure that the actual message must be disseminated. So the dissemination of the message is essential, because that is our prima facie role. So whether I'm watching a serial and then getting educated on a social issues or a concern, or I'm watching a television news and getting myself updated, but if there is a kind of real term of analysis is being done in a neutral way, so at least I should take away something from there, probably understand that how I could also play in a role absorbing that part, and try to ensure that I'm positively communicating to other, instead reacting to a way, the manner it suits me. So it is not an individual preferences or choice, or let's say call any establishment choice or something, but rather than it should be more holistic in approach. So there are situations where we see the authoritarian systems or the libertarian systems, they are in the media domain as well globally. But then probably the best part is that responsible, alert, and coming up with more meaningful dialogue must be required. Every communication must be appropriately scanned through, and then underlying all these core pertinent areas, and then put it across in a perspective so that the viewer could get a holistic point of view. So these are the few things I could say, and I would really look forward that in the coming days, media must play a very, very sensible role with power of wisdom which God has gifted each one of us. Broadcasting Content Complaint Council is playing a good role, or let's say the NBA or the YBFs, or there are a lot many organizational process, or the bodies, they are playing their role in an open system, what we see in the US situation kind of thing, so that at least we should look at every aspect in a meaningful way, not just looking at on self-gain or any kind of the intentions behind. Open and holistic approach, and going the deeper into it more sensibly and sensitively. Probably that could at least not only going to safeguard our profession, rather than it could promote to come up with a new environment where we have more free and the fair concept which even our constitution guaranteeing to us as far as the Indian context is concerned. And we should be open-minded talking about it. So I believe in a way all these things are need to going to play a role. At least we should even create more synergy to ensure that ethical guideline or the principles must be protected at any cost. Thank you so much, and my sincere thanks to all of you to have your patient hearing to me, and I'm quite delighted. Again, my sincere thanks to organizing team, the GMEC, and the entire member of the organizing committee, and Madam Ahana, the host of the show today, and my all eminent panelists. I'm delighted and time well spent with you all, and I'm very privileged. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, for your words of encouragement. And it is under the guidance of media educators like you that we as teachers, we are able to learn. And at the same time, we are able to unlearn the media practices before taking them to the classrooms these days. And I think we all agree to what you said, that truth, accuracy, sensitivity, they remains the matter of concerns with the functioning of the journalists who are acting as the communicators these days. And above everything, adding perspective becomes really, really important for the journalist to function. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I welcome today's keynote speaker, former journalist and editor, educator in journalism and communication, Ma'am Naseema Khan. Mrs. Naseema H. Khan has been an eminent print journalist with 19 years of experience in India and abroad. She began her career at the Economic Times, New Delhi, and worked at the news desk in features and later shifted to the Sunday Economic Times. Here, she was a part of the team that introduced a diaspora page about Indians living abroad. Later, she became the section editor and specialized in the NRI beat. Thereafter, she joined India Today as an editor with the international edition of the news magazine, which was circulated in London, New York, and Dubai. In her first, she led her team to feature an international news story as a cover story of the Indian edition. This was the edition that ran astronaut Kalpana Chawla on the cover. After being awarded the prestigious Wolfson Press Fellowship at Cambridge University, UK in 2004, funded by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, Ms. Khan decided to move to Muscat, Oman to join the newly opened English edition of Oman Tribune, where she was featured. She was the feature editor. 2 years later, she moved to Times of Oman as editor of the weekly Thursday magazine and features editor of the daily newspaper. Her frequent byline stories drew the attention of eminent personalities, and she was invited to join as a lecturer of journalism and communication at the Ministry of Higher Education. Since 2009, she has groomed many batches of Omani journalism students and made them ready for the industry. We are so glad to have you with us, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Dr. Ahana Chopra. Can you see me?
No, ma'am, we can't see you, but we are able to hear you. If you can just switch on your camera, that would be good.
Okay.
Yes,
you can see me now.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your kind introduction, Dr. Ahana Chopra. And good evening to all the eminent speakers at the webinar, and a very good evening to the audiences who have tuned in. I would like to begin with a word of appreciation for GMEC and its Global Communication Education Conclave. Indeed, this is a grand initiative having brought together so many media educators, practitioners, media institutes, and university departments. Congratulations on this great initiative. The topic of discussion this evening, as we know, is the violation of ethics in the electronic media. To begin with, the definition of ethics has always been difficult because there are so many factors that influence moral reasoning within groups and between individuals. James Rachels, in his book, The Elements of Moral Philosophy, has defined ethics as the attempt to achieve a systematic understanding of the nature of morality and what it requires of us. Now, the word attempt is used because there are no absolute answers of right and wrong. You have to take pros and cons into your decision making. And when we say systematic understanding, you need an understanding of different cultures, of different societies, of different environments, laws, religion, traditions, family background, personal values. All of these impact the way you think about ethics. Now, the nature of morality too varies between cultures, religions, and even between individuals. And when we say required to take action, again, the action taken will be different according to individual belief, gender, age, education, and so many other factors. So agreeing on any one definition of ethics is very difficult. So let's go back to what the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates said about ethics. We are discussing no small matter, but how we ought to live. So these are wise words indeed. Now, since I have been a practicing journalist in Oman and later a media educator, I would like to talk a bit about how the media works in Oman. Oman, of course, is a monarchy, and all the ministries, including the Ministry of Information, are directly, they come directly under the Sultan. So every minister is answerable directly to the Sultan. And in such a situation, the media laws are very, very clearly put out to the media, and they must be followed very by the book. They have to be followed by the book, or as a foreign journalist, you should not be practicing in Oman. So now, some areas are foreign journalists. There are many foreign journalists working in the English media in Oman, and some areas are open for reportage. So business, as long as the stories are positive, sports, art, culture, society, again, as long as the stories are positive. We are not expected to critique anything that is happening in the country as foreign journalists, and all political news is reported only by the government news agency, Oman News Agency. Now, in order to function in Oman, you have to follow these laws. So the ethics as they apply in a democratic country do not necessarily apply here in a direct way. I would like to just give a small example of the Arab Spring. Now, the Arab Spring, of course, we know back in 2011, it began in Tunisia, where a young man immolated himself because he was unable to get any means of sustaining his family. There were no jobs in Tunisia. Now, the uprising of the people in Tunisia against their government was soon copied in Egypt. Now, Tunisia did not get as much media coverage as Egypt. And in Egypt, a large number of people came onto the streets to protest the government of Hosni Mubarak. How did they come together? They came together through messages on Facebook. And that's how they came together. But unfortunately, this coming together of people from everywhere to protest against Hosni Mubarak did not have a leader. This movement did not have a leader. And much of it fizzled out after a point. Yes, Hosni Mubarak was ousted from power, but another regime came into place, which has not made much of a difference to the economic conditions within Egypt. Now, at about the same time, there were small copycat Arab Spring protests in many other places across the Middle East. And one of them was in Oman, in the northern city of Sohar. Sohar is close to the border of UAE. Now, the well-established newspapers of Oman, English medium newspapers, that is the Oman Observer, which is a government newspaper, Times of Oman, and Oman Tribune, none of them reported what happened in Sohar, not on the front page, not in the inside pages. It was just not reported. But Muscat Daily, which was a new newspaper at that time, they had just opened in 2010, had one of our students who had just graduated as a journalist. He was interning at the Muscat Daily, and his hometown was Sohar. So he begged the editor to send him to Sohar and that he would file all the stories and pictures. And he went to Sohar. He filed the stories and the pictures, all of which were edited and put on the front page of Muscat Daily. Muscat Daily the next day was the only newspaper that reported the protests in Sohar. And on the front page, there were no repercussions to the newspaper because the reportage was from an Omani young person, a young Omani journalist. And I'm happy to say that it was really encouraged by the ministry and other officials simply because it was an Omani person who reported on things. So if I have to talk about the Arabic press, it is quite different from the English press because the Arabic press is by the Arabs for the Arabs, but they are expected to focus on developmental journalism. So again, it is all positive journalism, although they do have awareness stories about, say, traditional medicines being harmful. So they will write stories about how such things are harmful for the people. So in a way, it is a very responsible thing. But one of the laws of Oman, media laws, say that no journalist should be reporting on something that could tear the fabric of society in Oman. So this is something that you have to be very careful of when writing in Oman. Now, I would like to also take the case of a case study from a vilayat called Liva, which is near to Sohar. Sohar is the second largest port city in Oman. Many people in the vilayat of Liva were falling ill because of pollution from the Sohar port. Now, for a long time, the people were protesting, trying to make the government listen to them, but such things were happening at a non-public level. So the public didn't know what was happening. However, in 2013, Times of Oman reported on a protest in Sohar by the Omani people, led by a Shura Council member. Shura Council is an advisory council, not a legislative council. So this report was sympathetic to the people, the protesters, and the police came to break up the protests. Now, interestingly, this news article had a dateline of Muscat rather than Sohar. So the people who wrote it didn't actually go to Sohar to see it. They got all their reports from authentic sources. So they ended up with, quoting sources as according to sources and activists, or Reuters said, or Human Rights Monitor posted pictures on Facebook, and so on and so forth. At the end of the article, they wrote one paragraph about how the people of Liwa were being rehabilitated in other places. Now, this, at least by reading this article, people could understand that something was happening in Liwa, which was harming the people, and the people were trying to get a better deal from the government. Now, what was published by Oman News Agency, the government news agency, on the other hand, there was no word on the protests. The entire article focused like a very in-depth report on the rehabilitation of the health victims from the Sohar port. And these victims actually came from 9 areas of the Vilayat of Liwa. And the Minister of Housing actually compensated people for the land that they would leave behind in order to move into the government new villages built by the government for all of these people, over 800 hectares, 20 kilometers away. So the problem was solved without letting much of it get into the newspapers. The problem was solved by the government. That shifted all these people who were affected by the Sohar port pollution into new homes 20 kilometers away, where the fumes from a Sohar port would no longer, hurt them. So this is how in Oman, television is run by the government. It is all government channels. Private channels are just now coming up, but they haven't had much of a chance yet. However, in the Indian scenario, there are many things happening that should not be happening on television. Yeah. So while many of the media laws that came up were mainly for print journalism, and then television laws for television came much later, and then laws for digital media came much, much later. So basically, you talk about ethics and media laws in print, and then move on to the others. So at least in Oman, you cannot take pictures of people without their permission. So you just cannot feature somebody's photograph without first having the permission to do so. Now, when you come to India, a similar law applies. You are supposed to take permission before you can use a person's name, their picture, or what they are saying in your article. Sometimes you do get information which the person you're interviewing says, okay, keep this off record, means don't get my name in it, don't get my quote in it, but you can use the information. So in the case of India, I will start first with a topic that I think needs to be discussed, and this is the tapping of private conversations. Of course, we all know about the Watergate scandal of 1972 in the US. It was the story of the illegal tapping of phones and the burglary of the Democratic National Committee headquarters in the Watergate complex. And this was broken by the Washington Post. The subsequent abuse of power by the US president and his administrative officials resulted in the impeachment of President Richard Nixon. And a book was written on this, All the President's Men, and it was later made into a film also. So it is considered to be the first example of an investigative report, but there are many lessons there that often media keep forgetting. So more recently, in 2011, the British weekly tabloid newspaper News of the World was closed down. It was in production since 1843. It was closed down by the CEO of News Corp, Rupert Murdoch, following accusations of illegal phone hacking and police bribery, and the paper just closed down. Now, this was in Britain. In India, I mean, when we are talking about ethics, yes, as the professor said before me, truth has to be adhered to. And perhaps we can give perspective, but our main job is, as journalists, is to present the truth, to make sense of the news that is out there, to be fair, to be balanced, and to quote the sources accurately, you know? So, as I said, without the permission of a person, the journalist cannot use the name or picture or publish private information about a person. Libel, that is written words, or slander, that is verbal or gestures. So libel or slander laws give legal protection against defamation. And all of these are meant to encourage responsible reporting. Now, when it comes to television journalists, they are required to give equal opportunity for airtime to individuals and are not to favor one candidate over another. This again is meant to prevent manipulation of such important things as elections, and all coverage must be balanced and fair. But in reality, television journalists are not doing this. What they're doing is they are setting the agenda. They are deciding what the news is, what the news what news should be covered according to the TRPs they can get. They are not, they rarely talk about the problems that parts of India are facing. Of course, we always have the saying, if it bleeds, it leads. So bad news is, for a journalist, is good news because it comes on the front page or it comes at the top of the news bulletin. However, more and more, the television journalists are setting the agenda of what is to be discussed, whether this topic is going to bring in the TRP ratings for their channel. And as I said, we don't have many reports of any of the development happening in India or any of the troubles faced by many people, say in these economic times when right after the pandemic, so many people are facing all kinds of troubles, but these are rarely talked about. Now, coming back to private messages. Now, what happens in Indian electronic media when investigative agencies leak WhatsApp messages from mobiles of private individuals to the press? Now, actually, what is happening is that the press laps it up. They're not trying to authenticate whether such a WhatsApp message actually exists. It's a leak from so-and-so, and they play it over and over again on television screens, as we have seen in the case of Sushant Rajput's suicide. Following that, the WhatsApp messages of many people were leaked by the investigating agency, and it was this was played up by the media over and over again as if this is breaking news. And but a report on news18.com, the Supreme Court has said the WhatsApp messages cannot be used as evidence in a court of law. This was a June 15 report of 2021. And it can only be used as evidence if it is authenticated by the prosecutor, who must prove who sent the message and prove that it is evidence of a crime. However, the level of weightage attached to WhatsApp messages may not be as much as for other electronic records. Now, we've seen how WhatsApp messages were played up by the media in the Sushant Rajput case, but also in the Aryan Khan case, where media jumped on the WhatsApp leaks to the press, and they just kept playing that over and over again. And this results in a very unfair situation where most of the population watching the news are going to think that the people who have not even come to trial, they have only been arrested, that these people are already guilty. So it's really media by trial, and this is extremely avoidable. So when news agencies or journalists try to show to the public that they have investigated the case, that they have all the proof that the police doesn't have and that the investigative agencies don't have, they're not actually doing their job. They're supposed to be reporting on the news. They're not supposed to be making the news. So I would like to end on this note. Yes, there are many things that journalists need to think about, especially in the electronic media, about ethics and how it impacts the people. Because one of the main rules that a journalist should go by is do no harm to anybody. So providing news that is half-baked or fake or is fake is really harming a lot of people. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on this very exalted platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Your talk was so engaging and intriguing. As a practicing journalist and an educator, you took us to the Omanian journalism in order to understand the ethical duties concerning the journalist there and how development journalism becomes important aspect of reporting, how important the policies become. While we look at the work which media does, we cannot ignore the government's role also. So thank you so much for such an engaging talk. We now move to today's corporate speaker, Mr. Sagar Vishnoi. I'm feeling so happy to introduce Mr. Sagar Vishnoi today with such a versatile profile. Mr. Sagar is the Chief Strategy Officer in the India's Factory, a political campaigner and analyst. Mr. Sagar's key experience lies in political communications. He has studied strategy from Columbia B School as executive education. Mr. Sagar holds extensive experience in the digital media space, having developed and executed the digital media strategy for various organizations and executed more than 100 campaigns. Mr. Sagar is also co-founder of Govt, where he's working on introducing innovative technologies into governance from VR to metaverse. Mr. Sagar became the core member in the communications and campaign team of Aam Aadmi Party. Sagar has been part of various political war rooms since 2012, where he has helped in forming communication strategies, application of strategy on ground from local candidates to presidential elections. Mr. Sagar has initiated fundraising campaigns for few social initiatives and became part of awareness generating social movements. He was awarded Karamveer Chakra by ICONGO and Global Fellowship Instituted by United Nations in the year 2014 and honored by Indian Youth Forum in Uttar Pradesh Leaders Conclave for his efforts in social sector in 2016. He has also worked as mentor of change with Atal Innovation Mission, which is the initiative by Government of India, Niti Aayog, to mentor students in secondary education on new innovations. He's also been recently acknowledged as Youth IGF Fellow of 2019 by ICANN and INSEC. Over to you, Mr. Sagar Vishnoi. Thank you for being there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anna. And thank you so much, Ms. Anna. And really thankful to all the distinguished speakers and GSEC for this wonderful initiative. And I'm really glad by the words spoken by the different distinguished speakers. Now, talking about what
I'm sorry, Sagar,
our
can
topic.
you sit on your camera?
I'm sorry, like I'm driving, so if it is possible.
Okay, then no problem.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
continue. Yes.
yeah. So if I speak about our topic, which is like violation of ethics in electronic media, and talking about the electronic media, like personally, like I haven't seen TV from last 3 years because of the many usual reasons, but still it is the most effective medium pan-India and even across the world. But what has impacted this electronic media is really a question, because I believe like there is a sensation above sense which has emerged as the blueprint for media houses, which are somewhere like trying to rig viewers' mind in order to get higher TRP. TRP, a tool used to know about the popularity of a program. And professionalism and media ethics have taken a back seat for the last few years, as viewers themselves seem to have surrendered their preferences of news and have made peace with politically motivated and ideologically inspired news. So I believe aggressive journalism has evolved over the time as an offshoot of post-globalization, when electronic media actually began live telecasting of news in 24 hours format. So if we like talk about the past, initially the media remained very much engaged in covering the news round the clock in order to create awareness among viewers. But with the spike in numbers of private channels after 2000, a new pattern of attracting the viewers towards their own channel by spreading the news quickly and spontaneously in a breaking news format has emerged. Sensational stories has emerged, and media trials have become more common on channels. So like while on one hand a large number of media editorial teams have been covering issues keeping high TRP in mind, on other hand, like issues of national interest and societal importance do not find that much enough time on TV news channels, as even the audience chooses news of sensation before news of sense. Another effort towards securing higher TRPs manifests itself when the media channels display a clear association with any ideologies or political parties. Because of this reason as well, news is like selectively sensationalized in accordance to the political and ideological agenda, which results in large viewership. And even leading media houses in India have been covering issues in accordance to a strict ideological allegiance and steadfast commitment to a political party in few of the cases. And because of this, there has been also a reason called flawed measurement of audience reach and readership, what we have recently seen in case of Republic and the Bark. So I believe like honesty, grit and perseverance of the news anchors have become doubtful in the last decade, as the quality of journalism has been like degraded from what news debates has been hitting a new lows for few years. Also, like this we can say like this has been happened because of the paid news and like how these debates are being organized with a propaganda without a certain amount of knowledge of professional ethics of journalism. So because of these many reasons, I believe we have actually entered into the age of post-truth world, where the narrative building and fake news are actually driving agendas, and the real issues have taken a back seat. Also, I believe I not losing the hope of how our journey of electronic media is evolving is like there is a sync of digital media and social media and electronic media is what we can see, like how there are a couple of YouTube channels which are almost trying to come upon on electronic media, and similarly there is a sync which we can see, like how Twitter is being engaged along with electronic media, which has its pros and cons. But like keeping with the hope, like I believe India is still not a surveillance state, and there must not be any kind of illegal or unconstitutional check on the freedom of media, provided that media sticks to the core principles like truth and accuracy and independence and fairness and impartiality as well, so that our ranking in the media, freedom of media index also increases. So at the same time, like there must be like professional strengthening of institutional and regulatory framework for the electronic media as well. Specifically for the Press Council and NBA and PIB, so that the quality of journalism and for the quality of even the electronic media increases. And with a in the 21st century, we get to see more of rather than the post-truth world, we get to see the quality electronic media. So also there would be a sync of metaverse and the emerging technologies along with the electronic media, which we are going to visualize and see actually, which is really going to revolutionize the electronic media, of course. So yes, like completing my 2 cents here, like I believe like I am hopeful about the electronic media, and I believe like their regulatory framework would is like very much possible for the regulation and for the improving the quality of electronic media. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sagar Vishnoi, for your words coming out of so much experience that you have gained. Indeed, a strict regulatory framework is required for Indian media practitioners. And talking about in the age of post-truth, definitely media find themselves trapped between the desire to restore journalism's authority, truth-seeking institution, and the lack of a coherent, applicable, and consensual theory of truth is definitely needed. Now I invite our session chair, Dr. Sanjay Pandey, to conclude the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ahana, for your wonderful moderation of today's webinar. And I must thank all the distinguished panelists, Professor Dubajyoti Pati, for his enlightening words, and he threw light like a true. He spoke like a true Gandhian, in fact, and I could sense an admiration for Mahatma Gandhi in himself, and that's a very heartening thing that coming from a great media educator like him. I'm certain that the students of the institute of which he is the dean and director, they will greatly benefit from his wisdom and new thoughts. And I especially thank Ms. Nasima Khan for her light, the kind of light he shed on the media scenario in Oman. In fact, she told so many new things to us, how, because I truly was under the impression that being a monarchy, there is no media freedom in Oman. But I think I have to change my views after listening to her when she said that things were reported, the protests were reported in the Omani press and no action was taken. These days, I think we find many of the Indian journalists are acted against and prosecuted for reporting on protests against the establishment in certain cases. And also Mr. Sagar Vishnoi, for he being a corporate, and he can shed light on this the subject from a different perspective, from a different angle, and it was really great to listen to him. And one thing that he said struck me, being a media person, all my life, and it wasn't good to listen to these words that I haven't seen television for the last 3 years. So this goes to show that the kind of, what kind of credibility the TV electronic media enjoys these days. And if it continues, I think we will have many more sagas in the days to come. And one thing that I would like to add to today's topic is that this issue of violation of ethics is not confined to the Indian media only. It's prevalent all across the world. And an example of this can be seen in the recent coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, not only in the Indian press, but also the press across the world. Even reputed organizations like BBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Reuters, and Bloomberg, AP, AFP, the Dueshwell, they all are reporting. We are only getting to see and read only one narrative, that is the European narrative. And I simply I would have liked to ask these Western media professionals as to where was this kind of outrage when the American bombs were dropping on children in Iraq and Syria. Mosul, if you see the scenes in Mosul in Iraq, the city was completely flattened and devastated by American bombings, but no outrage was expressed, neither by the Western press nor by the United Nations. Now, having said that, we must all condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the killing of civilians in the war. But then we are only talking about what we are started reading in the media. So, the violation of ethics is prevalent all across the world, and it's a very serious issue. And as I said in the beginning, that it needs to be tackled in our country as well as in other countries in the world. But we are concerned more about our nation. So I think Mr. Sagar also said very clearly that we need a framework, a regulatory framework, to set some standard as to how the electronic media content is going to be there before presented before the viewers, so that they don't put forward a distorted view or fake version of news or push their own agenda, as Ms. Naseema Khan very rightly said, that these days the media electronic media is involved more in agenda setting rather than reporting things objectively and truthfully. So I think all the panelists, they shed great light or in-depth discussion on this topic, a very important topic. And I must thank all the panelists. I must congratulate also Professor Dubjyoti Apati for the award. Sir, congratulations very much. And I think many more awards will be in the offing for you in the days to come. And I'm happy to be part of this webinar and to chair the session. Now with this, over to you, Dr. Ahana.
Thank you so much, sir. You have concluded very rightly, and I now believe very strongly that it is now the responsibility is on us, the teachers, to produce the ethical journalists in the future generations. And I am definitely going to use all the wisdom gained today in the classrooms. So I now formally thank the session chair, Dr. Sanjay Pandey, the eminent media educator, Professor Dhruva Jyotipati, international guest, Mrs. Naseema Khan, the corporate speaker, Mr. Sagar Vishnoi, and the GMEC executive body, Professor KG Suresh, the president GMEC, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, secretary GMEC, Dr. Amrish Saxena, Vice President GMEC, Dr. Uma Shankar Pandey, Vice President GMEC, Professor Shahid Rasool, Vice President GMEC, and all the other people who made this webinar possible and tried to get together all the dignitaries whom we have with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you